Session resume. May I request Honorable MP Sheikh Abdul Wahab Pak to lead us in the invocation.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا لنكونن خاسرين. ربنا إننا سمعنا منادي ينادي للإيمان أن آمنوا ربكم فآمنا فاغفر لنا يا غفور فإنك أنت الغفور الرحيم. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا في هذا المقام إلا غفرته ولا مريضا إلا شفيته ولا حاجة من حوائجنا في هذه الحياة إلا أعنتنا على قضاء يا رب العالمين. اللهم إنا نسألك من كل خير ما سألك منه نبيك وحبيبك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ونستعيذ بك من كل شر ما استعاذك منه نبيك وحبيبك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. ربنا افرج علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين وصلى الله وسلم على خير خلقه وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues. Today is merely a resumption of the suspended session yesterday. Majority Floor Leader.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Mr. Speaker, I would like to amend the order of business to include one particular resolution, proposed resolution number 630. So therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move to amend the order of business to include proposed resolution number 630 as flashed in the screen, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion to amend the order of business with the inclusion of proposed resolution. What is the proposed resolution number 630?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any second? There being no objection, the order of business of yesterday's session is hereby amended with the inclusion of proposed resolution number 630.
Mr. Speaker, I proceed with the order of business on item number 3, resolutions. May we request the Secretary General to read the proposed resolution number 630, including the title and the author, Mr. Speaker.
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of proposed resolution number 630, including the name of the authors and co-authors.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Mr. Speaker, proposed resolution number 630, entitled Resolution Congratulating and Commending the Notre Dame Hospital and Shena College of Cotabato City Incorporated, formerly NDH School of Midwifery, for producing 4 top-notchers in the December 2021 X-ray technologist licensure examination and recognizing the individual achievements of the 4 top-notchers, authored by the Honorable Member of the Parliament, Muhagir M. Iqbal, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I move to treat this as simple resolution and be transferred for the business of the day.
There is a motion to treat proposed resolution number 630 as simple resolution and be transferred to the business for the day. Is there any second? There being no objection, proposed resolution number 630 is transferred to the business for the day.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, considering that we are Thursday, today is Thursday, Mr. Speaker, is the privilege hour. May we respectfully recognize MP Romeo Sema to deliver a privileged speech, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Cotabato City is recognized. May we know the subject matter of the privileged speech?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The title of my favorite speech is on the enactment of the RA 6411, creating the Departments of Migrant Workers.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Majority Floor Leader. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Honorable Chief Minister Ahud Ibrahim, Honorable Speaker, Attorney Pangalian M. Balindong, Presiding Chair, Deputy Speaker Attorney Omar Sema, distinguished colleagues, guests, brothers and sisters, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Mr. Speaker, I rise before you on a matter of collective and personal privilege. Last December 30, 2021, the Senate and House of Representatives enacted Republic Act number 116411, titled Department of Migrant Workers Act. It created the Department of Migrant Workers, defining its powers and function, rationalizing the organizations and functions of government agencies related to overseas employment and labor migration, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes. The Act is in consonance with the duty of the government to protect the rights and promote the welfare, well-being, and interests of overseas Filipino or Bangsamoro workers and their families by ensuring that private recruitment shall meet professional, legal, and ethical standards, obtaining the best possible conditions of work that afford the dignity of overseas Filipino or Bangsamoro workers, providing timely and responsive services to address their needs regardless of legal status, ensuring the participations in the formulations of policies affecting their welfare, and providing mechanism for skills development and reintegration. It is also in adherence to the ratified international conventions and bilateral or multilateral treaties on migration, which the Senate commits. The new department will be a one-stop shop that will cater to the needs of OFWs as all the functions of other agencies currently under several government departments and handling different OFW concerns would be merged and transferred under the new agency. It will serve as the lead agency for implementing policies, plans, and programs that will ensure the protections, promotions of interests, timely resolutions of problems, and effective reintegrations of OFWs. As per record, so many of our overseas Bangsamoro workers or OBWs had unfortunate experiences in their work abroad and has been a perennial problem of burn. Thus, in our Bangsamoro Development Plan Goal, Bangsamoro Development Plan Goal framework, the reductions of vulnerability of migrants and OBWs and the protections of their rights were identified as one of the facilitating factors in ensuring access to and delivery of quality services for human capital development in the regions. In the Ministry of Labor and Employment, the law and the new department is an utmost welcome development for us. For one, it would help the office in monitoring and tracking the situations of our overseas workers, as the new department is tasked to regularly submit report detailing the number of OFWs in each country and or region. The status of the situation, including the problems and issues they encountered and such other relevant information to properly inform the public and the policymakers of the situation of OFWs around the world. Secondly, under Section 6 of Act, I am well pleased that this provision mandates the department to establish a management information system which will serve as the registry of all OFWs, including the Bangsamoro overseas workers, and the establishment of the 24/7 Emergency Response Center Unit and media and social media monitoring center to respond to the emergency needs of OFWs and their families. Here, we could establish linkage with the department for possible support and coordination in case our overseas Bangsamoro workers would be in jeopardy. The linkage or coordination is well supported in Section 24 of the law, where it explicitly states that the department shall closely coordinate with the Bangsamoro Ministry of Labor and Employment on the training, protections, and deployment of overseas Bangsamoro workers. It further states that nothing in this law shall be construed to affect or impede the authority of the Bangsamoro MOLI on labor, employment, and occupation. Or for the avoidance of doubt, transfer field offices of the POA and other related offices pursuant to Republic Act 11054 or the Bangsamoro Organic Law shall be excluded from the coverage of this act. Mr. Speaker, my esteemed brothers and sisters, please join me in expressing my gratitude to our President Rodrigo Duterte, for making this act as one of these priority legislative measures and closely monitoring it until realized. Also to Senator Christopher Lawrence Bongo as author and co-sponsor of the bill, and to Senator Joel Villanueva as the author and principal sponsor of the Senate Bill 2234, who was responsible for the inclusions of our recommendation as manifested in Section 24 of the Act. So Alhamdulillah, Mr. Speaker, our proposed our recommendation to incorporate our proposal to this very vital departments, the Senate, and duly signed by the President, redesigned and incorporated our proposal, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, again, in behalf of the overseas Bangsamoro workers, the Ministry of Labor and Employment, and the BTA Committee on Labor and Employment, I am reiterating our due recognition and appreciation to the President and the Honorable Gentlemen of the Senate. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, may we proceed? May we again respectfully recognize MP Latif to deliver her privileged speech, Mr. Speaker, to Zoom.
The lady from Tugayalan of the is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Am I audible? Can I be heard, Mr. Speaker?
Yeah, you may now proceed.
Assalamualaikum.
What is the subject matter of your privileged speech?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would have been there today if not for our Omicron surge. So my subject matter is our IDP of Marawi City, Mr. Speaker. May I proceed?
Yeah, you may now proceed.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Noong buong nakaraang buwan ng Disyembre, ginugunita po natin ang International Human Rights Day na may temang pagkapantay-pantay, isulong ang karapatang pantao sa panahon ng pandemya. Ang paksa po ng International Human Rights Day ay napapanahon sa sentimento at hinaing po ng ating mga kapatid na IDPs mula sa most affected area ng Marawi City. Sila po ay ang biktima ng 5 buwang digmaan sa pagitan ng rebeldeng ekstremista at ang mga kasundaluhan. 5 buwan na po na digmaan na nagdulot sa kanila ng maglilimang taon na po na pagkawala at pagkahiwalay sa kanilang mga lupain, bahay, ari-arian at maging sa kanilang mga mahal sa buhay. Ang mga IDPs ng Marawi ay hindi lamang biktima ng nangyayaring digmaan noong May 27, bagkus sila po ay biktima rin ng napapanahong pandemya po ngayon ng COVID-19. Pandemya na hindi lamang sakit ang dala, kundi kahirapan at kawalan ng trabaho. Sa kasalukuyan po, ang pag-aaral ng aming mga kabataan sa Marawi ay nananatiling hamon, dala ng matinding kahirapan na hinaharap po nila sa pang-araw-araw, maging ang kanilang mga magulang. Ang patuloy na kawalan ng hanap buhay, trabaho ng bawat pamilya at ang limitadong access sa edukasyon at serbisyong pangkalusugan ay nagdadala ng matinding mga hamon hanggat hindi ito nabibigyan ng solusyon at pangmatagalang lunas. Sa makatwid po, maraming mga pagsubok na pinagdaanan ng ating mga kapatid na IDPs. Maliban po sa trauma na dala ng giyera, nariyan din po ang kabi-kabilang mga pangyayaring na nanatiling bangungot nila maging sa kasalukuyan. Noong Pebrero 22 po, 2021, nagkaroon ng aking opisina ng konsultasyon sa kanila kung saan lumalabas ang mga nabanggit na problema. Ngunit ang pinaka-highlight po na issue na kanilang nasabi sa amin ay ang kambalingan, ang right to return. Ang permanenteng pag-uwi nila sa kanilang mga lugar ay siyang susi sa kanilang tunay na pagbangon. Ngunit paano nga ba ito maikasa sa katuparan? Ang pagbabalik sa kanila ay hindi simpleng pagbabalik lamang dahil kaakibat po nito ay kailangan nila muling maitayo ang kanilang mga tahanan. Dito na po pumapasok ang kanilang kahilingan na maipasa ang Marawi Compensation Bill dahil ito lang po ang tutulong sa kanila upang makakuha ng kakayahan ng pera na magagamit sa pag-repair at pagpapatayo sa kanilang mga nasisirang tahanan. Ang batas na po ito ay kasalukuyang nasa ikalawang pagbabasa na po sa nakabinbin sa Senado o second reading. Kahapon po nagpapasalamat po ang Bangsamoro Parliament sa Senado sa pagpasa ninyo po sa second reading. Ito po ay pasado na rin sa Kongreso noong September 2021. Kaya't ang aming pong panawagan sa aming pong mga kapwa membro ng Parlamento, suportahan po natin na maipasa na po ng Senado sa ikatlong pagbasa or third reading ang panukalang batas ng compensation bill at ang mahal na Pangulong Duterte ay suportahan na maipasa ito sa lalong madaling panahon bago po sila mag-adjourn. Ang panawagan po na ito ay isang magdadala ng malaking hustisya at panibagong pag-asa po sa aming mga Marawi IDPs. Naway tulungan po tayo ng Allah sa ating mga adikain at wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, may we request the Secretary to form part of the today's journal, the privileged speech of MP Romeo Sema and MP Maysara Latit, Mr. Speaker.
The Secretariat should take note of the direction of the Majority Floor Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, may we proceed to the order of business. We are on the committee reports. Committee reports number 67, submitted by the Committee on Transportation and Communication on regarding proposed resolution number 228, entitled Resolution requesting the government of the day to the Ministry of Transportation and Communication to fast-track strengthening of internet accessibility and connectivity, especially in the localities, and provide monthly report to the Parliament as to its compliance. On this matter, Mr. Speaker, may we respectfully recognize the Chairman of the Committee on Transportation and Communication, MP Eddie Ali.
The gentleman from tawi-tawi is recognized.
Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Mr. Speaker, my esteemed colleagues in this august chamber, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Transportation and Communications has the honor to report back to the Bangsamoro Transition Authority proposed resolution number 228 entitled a resolution calling for the Bangsamoro government to strengthen internet connectivity in the region, secure, safe, affordable, and faster online access, and provide free Wi-Fi or internet to the entire Bangsamoro area in line with the new normal policies that call for an increasing demand for internet services due to the COVID-19 global pandemic. Respectfully recommending for its approval with amendments to wit: 1. The title of the resolution was changed to read as Resolution requesting the government of the day to the Ministry of Transportation and Communications to fast-track the strengthening of internet accessibility and connectivity, especially in the localities, and provide monthly report to the Parliament as to its compliance. To capture the intention of the body of the proposed resolution, and number 2, in paragraph 10, the prior provision of the resolution stated as now therefore be it resolved as it is hereby resolved by the Bangsamoro Transition Authority to strengthen internet connectivity in the region and secure, safe, affordable, and faster online access, provide free Wi-Fi or internet to the entire Bangsamoro area, in line with the new normal policies that call for an increasing demand for internet services due to the COVID-19 global pandemic, was changed to reflect the title of the resolution to read as, now therefore be it resolved as it is hereby resolved by the Bangsamoro Transition Authority requesting the government of the day to the Ministry of Transportation and Communications to fast-track the strengthening of internet accessibility and connectivity, especially in the localities, and provide monthly report to the Parliament as to its compliance. Mr. Speaker, this report should have been submitted by Honorable Al-Said A. Sali, but it was not reported earlier, and this report is being submitted to the Parliament this afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I move to for the adoption of the committee report number.
There's a motion to
67.
adopt the committee report of the Committee on Transportation
Committee report number 67, Mr. Speaker.
and Communication. Is there any second? There's a motion to adopt. Seconded. There is a motion to adopt the committee report of the Committee on Transportation and Communication for deliberation.
Yes, for deliberation.
For deliberation. Is there any second?
Second the
There being
motion.
objection, the same is hereby. The report is hereby adopted for deliberation of this August body.
Mr. Speaker, I move to open the period of interpellation and debate.
There's some the period of interpellation debate is now open.
Yes, Mr. Chair, may I just one
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
We will recognize first those who are physically present.
May we
The-
respectfully recognize MP Baintan and Pata, Mr. Speaker.
The lady from Maguindanao is recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just got struck by the title of the resolution that the Parliament is requesting the government of the day. I guess we can improve later on during the period of amendment the wordings on the title and the prayer close, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, the same observation. It will be tackled in the period of amendments. Any other interpellator, Majority Floor Leader?
Yes, may we respectfully recognize MP Maysara Latif. Mr. Speaker, to be followed by MP Don Long.
The lady from Tugayalan of the Sur is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Just a short manifestation that I will also have a amendment later in the period of interpellation as to the title and the prayer.
We take note of that. Please submit your proposed amendment immediately through the chat box or through email of the Secretariat.
Yes,
MP
Mr.
Don Long.
Speaker.
The gentleman from Sulu is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to be clarified if what is the counterpart of the ICT national in the Bangsamoro?
The chair of the Committee on Transportation, the gentleman from Sulu is asking what is the counterpart of the ICT?
Department of Information, the DICT.
Yes, the DICT. What is the counterpart of the DICT in the Bangsamoro?
It is now Bangsamoro Information Communications Technology Office, BICTO.
Mr. Speaker, while the BICTO, we recognize that the BICTO is an Information and Communications Office under the Office of the Chief Minister. I would really like to be clarified if this was intended to be an equivalent to a ministry level, because I understand the BICTO, the Information and Communication Office, was originally from the ICT of the Office of the Governor of ARM before. So even reading through its mandate, it says implement proper information, technology, security in the Office of the Chief Minister, administer, maintain existing network in the Management Information System, monitor Office of the Chief Minister's compliance to ICT standards. If you would look at the admin code and what it provides, it seems to focus on the Office of the Chief Minister and within our office, and not necessarily in charge of the information and internet for the entire Bangsamoro, Mr. Speaker. I would like to be clarified if the good sponsor understands it differently.
Mr. Speaker, under the Office of the Chief Minister, there are actually two offices. One is the BICTO, okay, and actually before the administrative code, the functions of the BICTO was under the Ministry of Transportation and Communications. But with the approval of the Bangsamoro Administrative Code, there is the office created, the Bangsamoro Information Communications Technology Office, under the Office of the Chief Minister. The possibility of creating or upgrading BICTO into a ministry, that could be a possibility in the future, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yes.
Mr. Speaker, again, we have the national DICT. I would like to be clarified if the committee was able to inquire who is the national DICT coordinating with in implementing its projects or equivalent projects in the Bangsamoro.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, the any national offices, when it will be implement any national office, when it or department, when it will be implementing projects in the barn, we expect that the national office will coordinate with its counterpart in the Bangsamoro.
So the counterpart in the Bangsamoro is the Bicto, Mr. Speaker.
As of now, Mr. Speaker, yes.
But in our resolution, we have stated the Ministry of Transportation and Communication. So as regards the internet, what mandate and power does the MOTC have as regards internet connectivity?
Yes,
that is why we included them in the mandate.
Yeah. Actually, Mr. Speaker, the resolution was filed in May 2020. And DBTA approved the Bangsamoro Administrative Code last November 2020. So the filing, that's why this will be already form part of the amendment that will be made by the Parliament on the resolution. So that's why the resolution was addressing the Ministry of Transportation and Communications at that time when the resolution was filed.
So
and this was also adopted. The report was actually adopted during the time of my predecessor.
MP Don Loong may butt in. I think the mandate of the MOTC includes only telecommunications. And it is empowered to issue licenses and franchises to telecommunications companies operating in the Bangsamoro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that clarification. So when we say the MOTC, the Ministry of Transportation and Communication, the communication aspect refers to telecommunications on that level and not necessarily on the internet connectivity. Is that correct, Mr. Speaker?
I suppose, Mr. Speaker, the coverage of MOTC, as earlier mentioned by the speaker, is on telecommunications. So whatever aspects of telecommunication, if it includes the internet connectivity, I'm not sure if it includes internet connectivity, then that will be still form part. But the way I understand it, in the BICTO, as far as the ICT is concerned, ICT, information technology, it will fall under the BICTO po.
May I add, Mr. Speaker, to the inquiry of MP Don Loong?
I think I will give you the floor later. We will just allow MP Don Loong to finish his interpellation. I will recognize you later.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So as not to delay the proceedings anymore, I just like to emphasize that based on the clarification of the Speaker himself, the Ministry of Transportation and Communication, the communication there refers to licenses. It's like license for radios, licenses for TV channels, but not internet connectivity. And under Section 66 of the Bangsamoro Administrative Code, the Bangsamoro Information Communications Technology Office, the BICTO, will have the powers of the BARM on ICT, alignment of regional ICT. And I'm raising this, Mr. Speaker, because the resolution may be amended later on to include the office of the BICTO, because the last time I visited the Ministry of Transportation and Communication, referring the issue of internet connectivity, they informally responded to me that it is not in their direct mandate, and that the mandate, as we could see, is in the BICTO, which is under the office of the Chief Minister, that we must strengthen. If maybe on another legislation, if it can be elevated to a ministry level, or it can be strengthened. But we might be barking on the wrong tree to ask the MOTC to strengthen the internet accessibility, because the proper partner would be BICTO as regards the Bangsamoro, and the BICTO might even be a very small office that needs to be strengthened, Mr. Speaker. That's all, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, I agree with the manifestation of Brother MP Don Long.
We will now recognize MP Jamila Ramos.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I just would like to manifest that I second the motion, the observation of MP Don Loong, because under the administrative code, it is actually the BICTO that has the mandate in specifically on ICT matters. So, Mr. Speaker, I believe that we are open to amendments later on, and we are praying that this resolution will be passed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We take note.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I just would like to reiterate that the mentioning of MOTC is because this resolution was filed very much earlier before the approval.
I'm sorry, he is not in attendance.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, may I share something about this, Mr. Speaker?
Are you privy to the how much?
Mr. Speaker, this is what I am going to share because I had a consultation with the head executive director of the BICTO, Dr. Jonathan Mantikayan, and this is what I'm going to share to this august body, Mr. Speaker.
We will just allow MP Ramos to share his view.
Thank you,
This is not the official figure.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I learned from Executive Director Dr. Jonathan Mantikayan that there is an approved budget of 150 million funded to the MOTC that is intended for digital communications. Now, I believe that BICTO is just awaiting the Ministry of Budget and Finance for this amount to be transferred to the BICTO so that they could implement this 150 million intended for digital communication, Mr. Speaker.
1 minute suspension. Session resume. MP Mawalil, you may continue.
Mr. Speaker, I will not continue with my interpellation, but I'd like to put my reservation on this resolution because clearly the budget is not clearly determined by the for this year by the Parliament. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
George, floor leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move to close the period of interpellation and debate.
What is that, MP Rasul? Is that an objection?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I just would like to ask a short query.
Yes.
We will give you the floor.
The question I have, Mr. Speaker, is that there's a monthly report. I would like to ask the reason why we made it a monthly report.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, even very much earlier, even before the pandemic, we have been facing the problem on connectivity, the problem of internet connection, and I think the very purpose why we have placed it to report monthly, because we would like to be we would like the Parliament to be updated whether this resolution is being implemented by MOTC before, no? As we address this resolution to MOTC. So gusto po natin makita gaano ba kabilis, gaano ba ang improvement, no, ng ginagawa ng MOTC now Victo tungkol dito sa problemang ito. Kasi lalong-lalo na po, Mr. Speaker, sa ngayon, dahil nga sa pandemic, maski webinar, lahat na po, naka-online na tayo, naka-Zoom na tayo. Even this Parliament is having its session, naka-Zoom. So, very important po, Mr. Speaker. It is very important that we are updated on what we want to happen dito sa resolution na to at saka dito sa sektor na to. Kaya linagay po natin talaga, Mr. Speaker, na kailangan mai-report sa atin monthly so that in aid also of legislation, malaman po natin kung how shall we respond to the need of the people and even the government institutions po. Yun po, Mr. Speaker, kung bakit natin linagay po ang monthly reporting po.
Continue, MP Meet.
Last query, Mr. Speaker. I would like to ask, because this is an attached agency of the Office of the Chief Minister, and the Chief Minister gives question hour. Is this a regular question for the Chief Minister, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, MP Eddie Ali.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, even the other members of the Parliament po ay nagtatanong po sa akin, kaya ba natin yan ng monthly? Ang sa akin, Mr. Speaker, if it is necessary, if the Parliament feels, if it is the feeling of the Parliament that it cannot be done monthly, then we are open po for the amendment of the resolution po, Mr. Speaker.
I think MP Mitmug, if you consider that as a surplusage or an overarching imposition, you can propose an amendment.
Thank you, Sir Speaker.
I think we have discussed so much about this already.
Mr. Speaker, there is a standing motion to close the period of interpellation.
It's now a motion to terminate the period of interpellation and debate. Is there any second?
Second.
There being no objection, we terminate the period of interpellation and debate. Any other interest in this resolution can be pursued in the period of amendment.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move to open the period of amendment.
There is now a motion to open the period of amendment. There being no objection, the period of amendment is now open.
May we respectfully recognize MP Baintan ng Patuan, MP Rasmit Mog, and MP Maysara Latif, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you,
The
Mr.
Deputy
And as well as MP Don
Deputy
Long.
Minority Floor Leader is recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can we request the Secretariat to please flash? Okay, I agree with the changing of the MOTC through BICTO, but I would like to change the word requesting to urging. And gawa ka na lang ng iba kasi kay MP may Sara yan. So, urging, then you change also the MOTC to BICTO, then and provide quarterly, not monthly, at least quarterly. Quarterly. And remove the word fast track. Instead, we are just putting it that we are urging the government of the day to strengthen the internet accessibility. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Strengthening or strengthen?
Strengthen. Office to strengthen the internet accessibility and connectivity. Yeah.
To strengthen.
And same goes to the prayer close, Mr. Speaker. Best.
Strengthen. We will. What is the pleasure of the proponent?
Mr. Speaker, amendment is accepted.
The Secretariat, please take note. The proponent accepts the amendment. We will now recognize MP Maysara Dandamon Latip.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to also move that my amendment that instead of just to read as follows, resolution requesting the government of the day through the Bangsamoro Information Communications Technology to fast track the internet in accessibility and connectivity, especially in localities, and provide quarterly report to the Parliament. Mr. Speaker, my amendment is only to the word BICTO, Mr. Speaker. I hope that it will be accepted, Mr. Speaker, because it's the BICTO who implements the internet connectivity in the Parliament and the Bangsamoro.
It is already included in the proposed amendment of MP Baintan.
Baintan, yes.
So, Mr. Speaker, can I just join MP Baintan there, and my name would be also reflected as one of the authors of the amendment?
Okay, that's duly noted. Secretariat, please take note. MP Maysara should be included as co-author of the proposed resolution. Any other proposed amendment?
Subject to style, Mr. Speaker.
Subject to style. Please include. Please make sure that the amendment is reflected in the wherefore clause.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, MP Iqbal. MP Iqbal, Mr. Speaker.
The The gentleman from Datuudin since what is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Majority Floor Leader. First, I would like to manifest the inclusion of my name as one of the co-sponsors. Secondly, if I get it right, on the first premise, whereas the current crisis visits the world with the outbreak of coronavirus disease 2019. What started in Wuhan, China in December 2019 has now become a global pandemic. I don't think there is a need really to describe pandemic as global, because pandemic by itself is already global. So I would like to suggest that we omit the adjective global and then we just retain the word pandemic. That's my recommendation. Thank you.
Secretariat, please take note of the proposed amendment. What is the pleasure of the proponent?
Mr. Speaker, amendment is accepted.
Secretariat, please take note that the proponent has accepted the amendment of the gentleman from Datuudin since what?
Mr. Speaker,
Yes, MP Don Long, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Tawi-Tawi is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'd just like to amend if, because in the admin code, letter I, the name is called Bangsamoro Information and Communications Technology Office. Although in section 66, it doesn't provide the end, but it looks more appropriate to have the end as provided in the title in the admin code. The Bangsamoro Information and Communications Technology Office.
Secretariat, please take note. What is the pleasure of the proponent?
Amendment is accepted, Mr. Speaker.
Please, Secretariat, please take note. The proponent has accepted the amendment of the gentleman from Sulu. Any other amendment?
Mr. Speaker, I move to close the period of amendment.
There is now a motion to terminate the period of amendment. Is there any second? There being no objection, period of amendment is now terminated.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the approval of the proposed resolution subject to time, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion to approve proposed resolution number what? Can you flash the
228 as amended and subject to time, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, proposed resolution number 228 subject to style.
As amended and subject to time.
Yes, as amended and subject. There is a motion to approve proposed resolution number 228 as amended and subject to style. Second. There being no objection, proposed resolution number 228 is hereby approved by BTA plenary.
We proceed, Mr. Speaker, on the committee report number 68. Committee on Transportation and Communication in relation to proposed resolution number 238. May we again respectfully recognize MP Eddie Ali to deliver the committee report number 68.
The chairman of the Committee on Transportation and Communication is hereby recognized.
Before rendering our committee report number 68, I just would like to remind the Secretariat that Minister Magir Barno manifested earlier to be a co-author of resolution 228.
We have already told them to take note of that.
Secretariat, please take note of that. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Transportation and Communications has the honor to report back to the Bangsamoro Transition Authority proposed resolution number 238 entitled Resolution requesting to provide point-to-point transport for BARM employees working in BARM during coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19, respectfully recommending for its approval without amendments. As like in the committee report number 67, this was adopted by my predecessor, the Honorable Al-Said.
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt committee report number 68 for deliberation, Mr. Speaker.
There's a motion to adopt proposed the committee report number 68 for deliberation of the plenary. During the second, there being no objection, the committee report number 68 is hereby adopted for deliberation.
Mr. Speaker, I move to open the period of interpellation and debate.
There's a motion to, the period of interpellation debate is now open.
Mr. Speaker, may we respectfully recognize MP Baintanan Patuan.
The Deputy Minority Floor Leader from Maguindanao is recognized.
Yeah, thank you very much, Speaker. I just want to have some clarificatory question just to level off on the definitions of terms that were used in this resolution, Mr. Chair. And for us to be informed, what does this resolution exactly means when it comes to the operationalization later on once this one will be accepted. Mr. Chair, my first question is what we exactly mean when we say point-to-point. In the context of a worker working from Marawi, working in the regional government and residing from Marawi City, and a worker coming from tawi-tawi, a worker coming from tawi-tawi and worker of the Bangsamoro government in Cotabato City.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Based on resolution number 238, it is simply mentioned to provide transport point to point, for the employees of the BARM to report to their offices, and we leave it to the Ministry of Transportation and Communications to come up with the guidelines on how to implement this resolution. But I would agree with Mr. Speaker. I would agree with Sister MP Engineer Baintan. It's not really specified in the resolution. Well, is this point to point? No, and this is only possible if I have to say it, Mr. Speaker. This is only possible in the mainland, either Lanao or Cotabato City. But for us from the islands, the possibility of having a transport service from Zamboanga to Cotabato is what we intend to manifest, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for that clarification. My next clarificatory question is that Mr. Speaker, when was this resolution filed to the Parliament? Because this resolution might be applicable during the time of lockdown and no longer applicable during the level 2 implementation of the quarantine protocols.
Mr. Speaker, this was, I think, submitted in March 2021. The resolution was submitted March 22, 2021. But Mr. Speaker, from time to time, the alert level keeps on changing depending on the situation of the pandemic. Like for example, today we are Zamboanga City. I think the alert level for Zamboanga City is level 3 already, and we come from Cotabato City. We are still required, Mr. Speaker, even to not only the vaccination, the fully vaccinated card, but we are also required to have a negative saliva test or the PTRC test. We need to have a negative
RT-PCR
result. Yes. So we cannot really say when will this be, at that time or this time. But the situation keeps on changing, and in fact, it is worsening. With the Omicron variant, the situation is worsening because the more individuals become positive of the variant, and it is fast. This variant Omicron is really transferring very fast. So LGUs, the local government units, change their alert level depending on the condition.
Thank you very much, Mr.
May I take just say that I think this was filed during their second regular session.
Yes, March of 2021.
Okay.
Mr. Speaker, and I think the proponent is saying that this is still applicable even because the situation keeps on changing. My next question, Mr. Speaker, is if we allow this resolution and we grant the employees point-to-point access or transport through the MOTC, does the MOTC has the budget that is allocated, that is intended for this purpose, and does it belong to their mandate, Mr. Speaker? Because I know that MOTC is a regulatory body that regulates private operations of public utilities and vehicles, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, while this resolution was referred to the Committee on Transportations and Communications, the resolution did not specify that it is the MOTC to implement this. In the title of the resolution, it simply mentioned the providing point to point. While I would agree with Mr. Speaker, I would agree with the question, with the clarification, whether this is within the mandate of the ministry. Well, Mr. Speaker, I was supposed to say that it is the request, the resolution should have been addressed to the government of the day, rather than to the Ministry of Transportation and Communication.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I am conscious about the operationalization of the policies that we are going to impose upon the ministries and offices, because we should bear in mind that every policy that we will adopt in this chamber will have a corresponding resources, Mr. Speaker. And the question is, are the ministries and offices ready to implement the kind of policy? And we know that in the first place, they don't have the, it's not in their mandate to really operate a public transport for that matter, and it's with the private sector. So my concern, Mr. Speaker, is we might be coming up with a policy that is not implementable, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, again, when this resolution was referred to the committee, the committee approved this, the Committee on Transportation and Communication approved this resolution for to be reported back to the Parliament. Should this Parliament feel that the provision of point-to-point transportation for employees will not be reasonable, then we leave it up to this Parliament to decide after all, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, again, I would like to emphasize that I stand here just to clarify the meaning of the resolution. And I do not discount the actions and the agreement of the committee. But again, my point is to clarify and ensure that the policy that we are going to adopt will be implementable, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, when this resolution was tackled by the committee, I think the committee failed to invite the Ministry of Transportation and Communication to react to this. I think
1 minute suspension. Majority Floor Leader, I think the Deputy Minority Floor Leader and the proponent has agreed to some resolution, temporary resolution to the issue.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, after the discussion of the both members of the Parliament, I move to recommit this proposed resolution to the Committee on Transportation and Communication for further deliberation and discussion, and to invite necessary source speakers to answer some clarificatory questions on this matter, Mr. Speaker. So I move, Mr. Speaker.
Will the Minority Floor Leader?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I accept the proposal of the Majority Floor Leader.
Can you just second it?
Yes, I second the motion.
There is a motion
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, not an objection because we have already agreed here to
not an objection, Mr. Speaker, but this is in relation to the proposed motion by the majority floor.
What is that? Is that an objection?
No, Mr. Speaker, a rejoinder to the manifestation of the majority floor to recommit this to Committee on Transportation and Communication and Committee on Finance, Mr. Speaker, because this resolution needs to have a budgetary requirement, considering, Mr. Speaker, that they will provide services or vehicle transportation for the employees, Mr. Speaker.
Peter, do you agree with the motion that the Committee on Finance, Budget and Management
Yes,
should
Mr.
be
Speaker, I agree
included?
with the proposed amendment on the motion by the MP.
There is a motion to, yes, MP, the Minister of Labor and Employment.
Mr. Chair, I'm not against with the decisions of the majority to recommit back to the committee, but I refer back to the committee. If it's okay, Madjo?
Yes, this is
To give chance to the committee to request the MOTC on the committee hearing to explain or to.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, that is my standing motion, Mr. Speaker. And it is duly seconded by MP Baintan Patton, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, there is a motion to refer back committee report number 68 to the Committee on Transportation, Communication, and to the Committee on Finance, Budget and Management for further deliberation.
Mr. Speaker.
Been seconded, there being no objection.
Yeah, Mr.
The committee
Speaker,
report has been referred back.
Mr. Speaker, may I just manifest to delete or to strike out my earlier statement on the failure of the committee
Yeah,
to
take
invite,
note.
overlook, no? The committee overlooked to invite the Ministry of Transportation Communication. It should be
Secretariat,
overlooked. It
please
should be
strike out.
overlooked. Yeah.
Please strike out the word used, failed to meet on the matter discussed.
Mr. Speaker, just a point of information.
Yeah, the minority floor leader, you're recognized. I'm sorry, ma'am, we have already referred back the committee report.
Mr. Speaker, I agree, and I also second the motion to refer back this resolution to the committee level. Just as a point of information to everyone, because I have noticed in the two resolutions that were brought forth in plenary today, these were all filed several months ago or even a year ago. And just as a reminder to all of the committees, to all of us actually, that it is at the committee level. The reason why the majority floor leader refers certain resolutions to the committee level is so that this will provide the committees and the plenary later an opportunity to look at these issues, identify which ones are suitable for legislative review, and also gather and evaluate information and make the proper recommendations to the plenary level so that we can decide appropriately. So like in this case, if this will be referred back to the committee level, I hope that not only will there be a gathering of information, but also a discussion of what recommendations can be made, not just on the proposed resolution itself, but including the budget as mentioned by MP Toy Mangudadatu earlier. So this is just a point of information, just as a reminder that is the very purpose of conducting committee deliberations for resolutions, which can actually, in some cases, we say that this could have been just a simple resolution, but because there are budgetary components to it, there are information and data that we need to gather, then that is the reason why this is referred back to the committee. That's the only thing that I would like to say, Mr. Speaker. And
Duly
thank you
noted,
for
ma'am.
giving me.
MP, the gentleman from Sulu, do you have something to say?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I just like to raise, Mr. Speaker, that a P2P transport system requires partnership with the private sector. And I wonder if the Ministry of Trade Investment and Tourism might also be an agency because essentially the Ministry of Transportation and Communication is um, regulatory in nature, and we need the private partners and investors on this.
We take note of that. We will.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr.
Majority
Speaker,
Floor Leader.
yes, Mr. Speaker, we proceed. We are now on the business of the day. First, for reconsideration is proposed resolution number 605. Since this is only recommending and congratulating Mr. Speaker, I have an omnibus motion to dispense with the period of interpellation and debate, as well as the period of amendment, and I further move for the approval of this. Mr. Speaker.
Second.
There is a motion to forego the period of interpellation and debate and the period of amendment.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
With respect to proposed resolution number 605.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any second?
Second.
Twin motions to terminate the period of interpellation debate and the period of amendment is now approved.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we now proceed to propose resolution.
Can you please repeat the second motion on the
I move,
approval?
Mr. Speaker, for the approval of proposed resolution number 605, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion to approve proposed resolution number 605 subject to style.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any second?
Second.
Being no objection, proposed resolution number 605 is approved subject to style.
Mr. Speaker, we are now on proposed resolution number 613. Resolution urgently directing the Minister of Health, BARM, to prepare contingency plan in response to the emerging surge of COVID-19 Omicron variant in the country to prevent its further spread within BARM. May we inquire from the Secretariat if the principal author, MP Saprora Dipatuan, is present for today's session, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, considering that the principal author is not around, Mr. Speaker, I move to defer consideration of proposed
Mr.
resolution.
Speaker.
613.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Is that an objection?
No, I am the co-author, Mr. Speaker, and considering that this is a very urgent resolution urging the Ministry of Health to prepare for Omicron surge, and I believe that we have to pass this simple resolution today, Mr. Speaker. I am a co-author of that also, Mr. Speaker.
May I inquire first from the Secretariat is if the lady from Tugaya is a co-author?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday I communicated all of my co-authorships.
Mr. Speaker, may we know if the good MP Maysara was given authority by the co-author, by the principal author to defend the proposed measure, Mr. Speaker?
I'm not given an authority, Mr. Speaker. However, due to the urgency of the situation we are in the midst of an Omicron surge, Mr. Speaker, and according to the data that we gathered from the news yesterday, Central Mindanao is the highest in the Philippines aside from Davao and Visayas. So I believe that due to the urgency of the medical emergency today, we have to pass this resolution and not delay to next month, Mr. Speaker, because that would be too late, Mr. Speaker.
It's the pleasure of the
Yes,
majority
Mr. Speaker,
leader.
can we just defer muna ito, Mr. Speaker, and we call to MP Dipatuan, maybe he can be in Zoom anytime from now, Mr. Speaker.
1 minute suspension.
Yes. Pwedeng man. discussion with the Deputy Minority Floor Leader, we will take this situation as exception, Mr. Speaker, considering the urgency of the situation, Mr. Speaker. However, the Deputy Minority Floor Leader would like to ask clarificatory questions. Maybe the good lady from Tugaya, MP Latif, may want to we have the knowledge on the clarificatory questions of MP Baintan Napaton, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. May we request the Secretary to please show on the screen the title of the resolution. I don't mind the content. It says here that we are urging, we are directing the Ministry of Health to prepare a contingency plan. And may we know if what are the measures that are being done right now by the MOH? Because I know that they are aware that Omicron is in our doorsteps now. Don't they have the contingency plan yet? And it requires the Parliament to call their attention to prepare a contingent plan. That's a question, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, although that I am not from the Ministry of Health, this will greatly help the Parliament in expressing its highest sense of urgency that the MOH, if they're adopting a contingency plan, to implement it properly and also make sure that they have this plan. This resolution will not in any way get in the way of the MOH implementing a contingency plan that they have already adopted. This is on the part of the Parliament doing its oversight function over the Ministry of Health. Remember, we have the power to direct the Ministry of Health to do all and everything in its power to make sure that our citizens are safe from COVID-19, especially the Omicron. So this contingency plan that the resolution contains merely fortifies, if any, there is a contingency plan already in place, the MOH implementing power, Mr. Chair. So our resolution, Mr. Speaker, is to fortify, support the call for MOH to do everything in its power to stop the spread of Omicron and also to make sure that the provinces in the entire BARM is ready and they have adequate supplies of medicines, because as I've heard, we have the highest already in the country today in Central Mindanao, and that was reported last night.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, because the content of the resolution is that we are assuming that the MOH is not doing their function because it takes us to call their attention to prepare a contingency plan when in fact they know that they have a problem already that is in our doorsteps, Mr. Speaker. So maybe we can change the word to prepare later on, because there's an assumption really, because this is already their mandate. No? Preparing a contingency plan is part of their regular mandate. And I think we can urge them to really look at the situation right now and come up with the strategies that would better answer the existing Omicron problem, Mr. Speaker. And maybe we can look at that perspective, Mr. Speaker, rather than telling them that you do your job, because we know that they are doing their job, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
If you have any proposed amendment, you can propose.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the wording of the word prepare, because as I've said, it's part of their mandate. And maybe we can, later on, in the period of amendment, maybe some members of the Parliament can also ask in order to improve further the resolution.
You noted.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. MP,
the gentleman from Tawi-Tawi, MP Amir Mawalil.
To be followed by MP Ujja, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just I'd like to pose some questions to the proponent, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, gusto ko malaman kung ano yung ibig sabihin ng contingency plan. Ano yung nasa loob ng contingency plan?
The
Mr.
proponent.
Mr. Speaker, the contingency plan is a plan of action to address a particular problem that has emerged in response to a crisis. So the crisis today that we are faced is that we are in the midst of a Omicron surge, the highest impact in the country today, Mindanao being the highest already. So the contingency plan is an emergency plan that will address this emergency situation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Curious lang ako, Mr. Speaker, kung ano yung pagkakaiba ng contingency plan at kung ano yung ginagawa ng ating MOH ngayon, ano yung add-on doon sa contingency plan. Mr. Speaker, tama po ba na yung Omicron is just a variant of the COVID-19?
Mr. Speaker, as far as I'm concerned, even if I'm not an expert, yes, that is a variant of COVID-19, Mr. Speaker.
So, we are all aware, Mr. Speaker, na there is an existing efforts by in fact, I believe since MP Dandamon Latib is a member of the Committee on Finance, that the budget provision for for COVID-19 has already been integrated in 2022 budget. So my question really is, what is so special with the contingency plan? What are we going specifics of the contingency plan?
From the purpose, Mr. Speaker, the COVID-19 Omicron is not an ordinary variant. It's 500 times more infectious, more transmissible than the previous strain or the previous variant. So regarding the necessity of having a more strenuous, rigorous plan, I believe that it is high time for us to do everything in our power to make sure that our citizens are safe. As I've said a while ago, this is not an ordinary variant, Mr. Speaker. According to the World Health Organization, this is a variant of concern and one of the most dangerous variant because although it is mild in its presentation, still the overwhelming of our health system is there and prevalent, Mr. Chair. So the risk of contracting this, I think in the population of BARM is already 50% according to data. So 50%, Mr. Chair, is so high.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for that, Mr. Speaker. Again, I'd like to ask Mr. Speaker kung ano yung pinaka-salient points nung ini-envision nating contingency plan, Mr. Speaker. And gusto ko rin itanong, Mr. Speaker, kung ano po ba yung ginagawa natin na pinaka-tingin natin magko-combat nung itong variant na to. Tama po ba na yung vaccination natin, yung isa sa mga main campaign efforts ng government to rid out of not just the Omicron but the COVID-19 virus in general, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, I'm not from the MOH, although according to the World Health Organization, aside from the vaccination, there are other measures that are needed to be taken by any country to make sure that the virus is controlled, Mr. Speaker. So I believe that the MOH knows all of those control mechanisms. I'm not in the best position to do that. I'm not an expert on COVID-19, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, that is precisely my dilemma, Mr. Speaker, because gusto ko sanang makita kung ano yung pinaka add-on dito sa contingency plan. Kasi ang impression ko is hindi pa enough yung ante nung campaign ng MOH natin against COVID-19. Kaya yun ang gusto kong malaman, Mr. Speaker. Are we going to do this every time?
I think you can introduce an amendment here.
Then I will not introduce amendments, Mr. Speaker. I'd just like to know, will this be a precedence na every time na meron tayong variant of concern, I will going to urge to develop a contingency plan. And what is really a contingency plan in this context, Mr. Speaker? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
MP Ujja, you're recognized. To be followed by MP Adiali.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a member of the Committee on Health of this DTA, I have to say, and I have established my presumption that from the very start of the COVID-19 problem or pandemic, the DOH has already a contingency plan, in as much as such contingency is situation-based. That is our presumption from the committee. Now, what is important here is with the emergence of this upsurge Omicron, we have as well to strengthen. We are looking into the MOH to strengthen the contingency plan as need be. So that is my opinion as far as this.
Is there any question, MP Ujja?
My question is there an indication of strengthening the contingency plan ever started from the very start of the pandemic, Madam Proponent? Can we be,
Mr. Speaker,
yes, can we be clarified on that?
Mr. Speaker, the import of this resolution, it is not an ordinary resolution. Remember, the one who filed it is also a former Ministry of Health. So because of that, we have to give credit to what he filed and what he foresee in terms of our public health. Minister Saprula, former minister of the MOH, wanted to strengthen the existing contingency plan, or if there's none, then there should be. Otherwise, we would be very remiss in our duty, Mr. Speaker, as members of the Parliament who regulates, oversees, represents our people. So we need to legislate on matters that affect the welfare of our people, if not to strengthen all the mechanisms to save lives, Mr. Speaker, especially now that we are in the midst of this very big pandemic, the Omicron surge. So with the finding of this, I believe, Mr. Speaker, that we are merely strengthening, fortifying the existing guidelines or implementation of public health guidelines of the Ministry of Health, Mr. Speaker. There is no harm in passing this resolution. If not, it is in accordance with our duty as regulators, as overseers, and as legislators.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, considering the urgency of this resolution, I support for the doable and possible approval. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Ujja. The gentleman from tawi-tawi is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gusto ko lang po itanong, I have some clarificatory questions sa Sister MP Maysara. No? Unang-una po, itong resolution na ba to, as co-author ng resolution, na itanong po ba natin sa Bangsamoro IATF kung ano na yung contingency plan, no? Hindi lang po dito sa Omicron na to, but ever since. Sa palagay ko po, Mr. Speaker, ang ating DOH at saka ang ating Bangsamoro IATF, mayroon sila, no? Contingency plan to respond to the pandemic. Kaya gusto ko lang po malaman sa proponent kung nakausap ang Bangsamoro IATF tungkol sa kanilang contingency plan on this. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the proponent in its rationale says that this contingency plan that we are trying to pass today should be a well-planned, well-implemented response and measures that will prevent and minimize the spread of Omicron, especially for pediatric group. So it is not addressed to the IATF, Mr. Speaker, but to the MOH, not to the IATF. So if there is a amendment to that effect to also call the attention of the Bangsamoro IATF, then this representation is willing to accept that.
Mr. Speaker, tungkol po sa response to the pandemic, to include already the Omicron variant. Ang Bangsamoro IATF, ang National IATF, kasama po doon ang Ministry of Health dito sa ating level. Okay, kaya ang sa akin, yung dalawa, no? Yung Bangsamoro IATF at TMH, kasama po yan sa pagpaplano. Kaya tinatanong ko po, kung ito ba ay may ano na rin tayo, may update tayo galing sa IATF. Kung wala po, yun po ang magiging...
We will just inform the Bangsamoro
IATF.
interagency task
At saka,
force. We will
po,
furnish them a copy of this resolution assuming we approve this.
Yeah. At saka, yun nga po sa amendment, Mr. Speaker, gusto kong mailagay na ang IATF, Bangsamoro IATF will be also allowed to respond to this. Kasi sila po ang may mandato tungkol dito po. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
May I recognize first, before I recognize MP Mohagar Iqbal, I will recognize first MP Don Loong and MP Romy Saliga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would like to ask the co-author, Mr. Speaker, if what are the roles that the BARM Ready, the BARM Disaster Response Agency has in the, aside from the AITF that was mentioned already a while ago, is it covered under the mandate of BARM Ready and the BARM Disaster Response entity?
Mr. Speaker, I am not in a position to categorically state that there's a mandate for the BARM Ready with regards to the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic Omicron surge. However, I believe that the point that is raised by MP Loong is very vital also, considering that BARM Ready is also part of the government. So there should be a whole of government approach. So if the good proponent later on will have an amendment to include the BARM Ready, we are ready to accept, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I will just propose it later because as what the co-author MP Maysara Damdamun had mentioned, we would want a whole of nation approach. So while the MOH will create a plan, it is the other agencies like the Ministry of Interior and Local Government that informs the local government units, the DSWD, even the disaster response is with the agencies of the MILG and DSWD. And even the MBHTE is a vital partner. So we hope that while this resolution is good for the MOH, we hope that other agencies will be involved through the existing mechanisms of the BARM Ready, the BARM Disaster Response Agency, as well as the IATF, working as a team.
Are you done, MP Don Loong? I will now recognize MP Romy Saliga.
Thank you.
MP Romy Saliga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Considering yung severity ng cases at saka yung urgency ng itong new variant ng COVID-19, Omicron variant, I don't think so na wala hong plano ang MOH. Kaya ang tanong ko, natanong ho ba natin yung ating minister sa MOH kung meron ba talagang contingency plan or wala? Because hindi ho pwedeng antayin pa natin yung may resolution yung Parliament bago mag-a-act dapat yung mga ministry natin. Dapat as soon as possible, pagka mayroong mga ganitong problema, they can already do their mandate. Kasi I presume executive, they can do it na gagawa ng contingency plan. Kaya nga, doon sa title later, kung meron na, if the proponent is aware, kung meron ba. Kasi kung meron, then I might propose an amendment to sa title, hindi na ho formulate, kundi to present kung meron na. To present to the
Mr.
Parliament
Speaker.
kung ano yung contingency plan.
Mr. Speaker, then we are amenable to any proposal coming from MP Saliga if he wants in the latter part to propose an amendment to make sure that the MOH presents in our next session. That will be 14 days from now or 21 days from now, no? That would be so super late. So maybe, Mr. Speaker, I believe that if there's an amendment from MP Saliga, we will just accept later.
No, not necessarily na magantay pa na next session. Maybe through the MOH, kasi ano naman ito, ministerial, ano naman.
The Committee on Health can call a meeting actually.
Through the Speaker of the Parliament, para lang ma-inform tayo na meron na pala. Para we don't necessarily
Mr. Speaker, yes,
special
we appreciate,
session. Para lang naman natin na meron na.
We appreciate the call of MP Saliga. However, Mr. Speaker, this is a
Yes,
simple resolution.
if there's no more question from MP Saliga, I will now recognize the Minister of Basic, Higher and Technical Education.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Majority Floor Leader, this is a manifestation. Pagkakaintindi ko, yung resolution na yan, ay inaatasan natin ng Ministry of Health na lalong paigtingin nila yung preparasyon nila in the face of the upsurge of COVID-19 Omicron variant. So ang tanong ko rito, ano pa bang idagdag natin doon sa mga preparasyon natin? Meron na tayong physical distancing, use of face mask, face shields, lockdowns, etc., etc. I think, if I have to be very precise, I think the best way to address the upsurge of COVID-19, especially the Omicron variant, paigtingin natin yung vaccination Kung titingnan natin sa van, I think it's only around 34-35% ang vaccination natin dito. Compared to the national vaccination rate na I think it's around 70-80%. So if I have to be precise, I repeat. And then I think we have to emphasize yung talagang kailangan yung Ministry of Health na magkaroon sila ng massive na vaccination campaign para at tataas naman yung rate ng vaccination natin dito sa BARM. Yun po ang aking manifestation. I repeat, I think the best way really to confront the COVID-19, the variant, Omicron variant, is really to increase yung vaccination rate natin. Yun po, Madam MP Mesara Latif ang aking suggestion. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Mr. Speaker.
We duly note the manifestation. Yes, is that a question, MP Mangularato?
This is in relation to the subject matter, Mr. Speaker.
You may proceed. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Going back to the title as well as the call of the proponent of this proposed resolution, when I asked the Secretariat as to when did they file this PR number 613, they filed this, or the proponent or the author of this filed as early as January 6, Mr. Speaker. Now, siguro the intention really is to ask the Ministry of Health as early as when the Omicron upsurge, or when the Omicron surged in the Bangsamoro region. However, Mr. Speaker, if we look into a broader perspective, I agree with the manifestation of MP Iqbal. So the only way or the concrete plan to address the surge of the Omicron variant, Mr. Speaker, is really to intensify the campaign of the vaccination in the Bangsamoro region. And I would like to quote no less than the President. He himself, Mr. Speaker, even mentioned the low rate of the vaccination program in Mindanao in general, Mr. Speaker. Hindi ho instantly identified itong Barm region, but Mindanao and some Muslim areas in general, Mr. Speaker. Now, kung palalawigin po natin itong discussion natin dito po sa proposed resolution, baka ho mamaya mauuwi na instead of Ministry of Health lamang ang dinadirect natin, might as well, we will ask the government of the day, what are the measures, what are their concrete plans in addressing the surge of the Omicron variant? Considering, Mr. Speaker, na ang MOH is under ho yan ng IATF. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, dito po sa level ho ng regional government, is meron din po tayong regional IATF, which I believe, Mr. Speaker, it is also incumbent on the part of the IATF regional level also to apprise the Parliament as to their plans in addressing the surge of the Omicron variant, Mr. Speaker.
Was there a question there, MP?
Both a question, Mr. Speaker, and a manifestation. Ang unang tanong, kung palalawigin natin itong sa contingency plan, ito pong proposed resolution is file as early as January 6. Ngayon, ang date na ho natin, that was almost 3 weeks ago na. So ang intention ho nito is earlier than the surge of the Omicron variant in the region. It so happened, ngayon lamang po nabigyan ng pansin, gawa ho, na ngayon lang ho tayo nagkaroon ng session. Now, on the other side of the issue, the MP Iqbal manifested doon ho sa paigtingin natin yung kampanya ng vaccination sa region. I also agree with him. Last part of my manifestation is if we are going, kung palalawigin natin itong issue, baka ho mamaya the Parliament maybe perhaps could ask the government of the day through sa IATF kung ano ho yung mga measures nila. Considering na ang Omicron is pumasok na po sa Barm region, Mr. Speaker.
We will take note of that question, manifestation and question. We will now recognize the gentleman from Maging to please ask your last question.
Thank you, sir.
Because we have discussed thoroughly already on this matter.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Attorney Mashima. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh sa mga member of Parliament, sa mga secretariat, guests. Mr. Speaker, ang clarification ko lang, ano pa ba ang mga plan natin dito sa health? Kasi sa pagkakaalam ko, nung isa po tayo sa nag-budgeting ngayong December, ay kumpleto po na plan para po sa mga COVID-19. Ano po yung mga plan based ng health na kailangan po nilang gawin, Mr. Speaker?
MP Latif.
Mr. Speaker, that's the reason why we are reporting to this plenary that there is a need for us to know if they have contingency plan. And if not, then they should make one. And if there is existing, then they should strengthen. So maybe later on in the period of amendment, the good MP can propose additional amendment as to how his question can be answered.
Mr. Speaker, yung contingency plan, I understand, saan po natin yan ihilingin? Sa budget na health o i-others sa Chief Minister o sa mayroon bang nakalaan pa, natitira pa na Bangsamoro Fund sa Black Grant, Mr. Speaker? Kasi budget
Mr. Speaker, the budget for this properly pertains to the MOH, Mr. Speaker.
Pakiulit po, Madam.
Sa MOH daw.
MOH, okay. Mr. Speaker, last question, suggestion. Mr. Speaker, baka pwede na hilingin natin sa Chief Minister, Government of the Day, na alam natin na lumalala yung COVID, sabi nga ng Pangulo, kailangan po na mapanatili ang buhay ng mga mamamayang Pilipino, lalo po dito sa Bangsamoro. Bakit hindi po mag-issue ang Chief Minister na hipitan po natin ang Bangsamoro para po may guidelines? Kasi ang Presidente po, nag-utos po sa bawat LDO dito sa region natin. Siyempre, ang masunod po ang Government of the Day, tayo po Member of Parliament o si Chief Minister Ibrahim Balawag Murad. So bakit hindi po natin magbigay ang Chief Minister na guidelines na magipit po tayo para lalo po ma-safety yung mamamayan ng Bangsamoro, Mr. Speaker. Yun lang po yung suggestion ko, ang question ko, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Duly noted.
Mr. Speaker,
Majority Floor Leader?
I move to close the period of interpellation and debate.
There is a motion to terminate the period of interpellation debate. There being no objection, the period of interpellation debate is now closed.
Mr. Speaker, I move to open the period of amendment.
The period of amendment is now open.
Mr. Speaker, may I be recognized?
The lady from Maguindanao is recognized.
Hello.
Ayan.
Meron pa naman. Okay.
Ayaw pa yaman.
Yes.
Ayan. Yeah, may we request the Secretariat to please take note of the proposed amendment on the title and on the prayer close. On the title, resolution urgently directing the Bangsamoro Interagency Task Force BIATF, open close. Especially the Ministry of Health are ABARM, kasi member siya, di ba? To strengthen further its preventive measures, open close, e.g. vaccination intensification, e.g. parang for example yan, tapos close, and response to the emerging upsurge of COVID-19 Omicron variant in the country to prevent its widespread within the BARM. Yung further spread is, tanggalin mo yung further because we already used the word further. You change it with widespread. Ayusin mo nga yung presentation para ma-appreciate natin.
1 minute suspension.
Yes. Yung further, tama doon yung sa
Session resumed.
Secretariat, please copy that in the prayer close so that we can further improve the title. So go back to the title. You go back to the title. You remove the open-close vaccination intensification and move the word measures after the word response. So that means to say preventive and response measures. That's it, Mr. Speaker.
What is the pleasure of the proponent, MP Latif?
We accept, Mr. Speaker.
Do you accept?
We accept.
The Secretariat, please take note that the proponent accepted the proposed amendment.
Mr. Speaker, I move to close the period of amendment.
There's a motion to terminate the period of amendment. There being no objection, the period of amendment is now terminated.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the approval of proposed resolution number 613 as amended and subject to style.
There is a motion to approve proposed resolution number 613 as amended and subject to style. Then the second.
Second.
There being no objection, the proposed resolution number 613 is now approved and adopted by the BK plenary.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we proceed to propose resolution number 624 and 629. Mr. Speaker, I move to consolidate these two proposed resolutions considering that this has the same subject matter and issues, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion to consolidate proposed resolution number 624 and 629. It's been seconded. There being no objection, the same is hereby approved.
Mr. Speaker, may we recognize one of the principal authors, MP Mohagirik, to shed lights on this particular resolution.
On both resolutions.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
We recognize the gentleman from Datu Udin Chinswan.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Majority Floor Leader, my esteemed colleagues in this most august assembly, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I stand before you today to introduce a resolution for the consideration of my esteemed colleagues in the Bangsamoro Parliament. The resolution is entitled Resolution Congratulating and Commending. Huh? I'm not ready to defend that. Sorry for that.
Yes.
That was a glitch.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, may I? MP. 1 minute suspension, Mr. Speaker.
1 minute suspension.
Huh?
Session resumes.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, after discussion with the MP Mohager Iqbal and considering that this resolution is masyado na pong matagal ito kasi nangyari itong incident sa December 29, 2021 and this will be our last session for today's month. Kung i-move pa natin ito sa susunod na buwan ay mas lalo pang tatagal, Mr. Speaker. And that, Mr. Speaker, I appeal to this august body to support the immediate approval of this consolidated resolution subject this time, Mr. Speaker. So therefore, I have an omnibus motion, Mr. Speaker, to dispense with the period of interpellation and debate and period of amendment. And my second motion is the approval of this resolution subject this time.
There is a motion to dispense with the interpellation, debate, and with the amendment of this proposed resolution, consolidated resolution.
Mr. Speaker, may I be recognized, MP Mangudo Dato?
Yes, you are recognized.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, a manifestation to the proponent of the measure that I would like to be part of the two measures, Mr. Speaker. Please include my name as co-author of this two proposed resolution, Mr. Speaker. And I so move for the immediate approval.
Please take note and please include me also in the authors. There is a motion to dispense with the period of interpellation and amendment. It's been seconded. There being no objection.
Mr. Speaker, Mr.
Debate
Speaker.
and amendment of these resolutions are now terminated.
Mr. Speaker.
What's that?
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to move that all the members of the Parliament be author of this very important human rights measure, Mr. Speaker. It behooves upon us to express our sentiment that we will not condone the killing of Bangsamoro communities outside BARM, Mr. Speaker. I so move, Mr.
The
Speaker.
Secretariat, please take note of the manifestation of MP Maysara Dandamulatit. There is now there is a motion to approve this consolidated resolution subject to style. It's been seconded. There being no objection. Proposed resolution number 624 and 629 are hereby approved and approved and adopted subject to style by this BTA plenary.
Mr. Speaker, we proceed to the last resolution on this particular session, proposed resolution number 630. But before we move for the omnibus motion, we will first respectfully recognize MP Mohager Iqbal, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, the gentleman from Datu Din Sinswat municipality is recognized once again.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Majority Floor Leader, I'm so sorry for the lapses because you have an understanding that MP Aida Silungan will stand to defend that resolution. And admittedly, I was not prepared. I'm not prepared really to discuss the issue. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Majority Floor Leader, my colleagues, again, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I stand before you today to introduce a resolution for the reconsideration of my esteemed colleagues here in the Bangsamoro Parliament. The resolution is entitled Resolution Congratulating and Commending the Notre Dame Hospital and Sena College of Cotabato Incorporated, formerly Notre Dame School of Midwifery for producing 4 top-notchers in the December 2021 X-ray Technologies Licensure Exam and recognizing the individual achievements of the 4 top-notchers. As background, Mr. Speaker, on January 4, 2022, the Professional Regulation Commission announced the results of the X-ray Technologies Licensure examination given by the Board of Radiologic Technology in Manila, Baguio, Cagayan de Oro, Davao, Iloilo, Legazpi, Lucena, Rosales, Tiguigaraw, and Zamboanga last December 2024. And 44 out of 155 passed such examination. I am glad to share, Mr. Speaker, esteemed colleagues, that 4 examinees coming from the BARM who happen to be product of the Notre Dame Hospital and Sena College of Cotabato Incorporated, formerly Notre Dame School of Midwifery, a private institute of higher learning in Cotabato City, landed in the top 10. They are the following: Isnaira A. Rangan, top 2, Pairoz A. Tahir, top 3, Jalila D. Alabat, top 5, Asmaira M. Rangan, top 10. This marvelous feat is an inspiration both to the diverse communities in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region, especially to the youth, and to our institutions, whether public or private, as this exemplifies excellence in all respects. This success inspires us to do more, and cultivate even better an environment conducive to learning by providing different educational support through our scholarship programs and subsidies to private institutions. Moreover, it is triply emotional, sentimental, and exciting that 2 of the 4 Moro top-notchers are coming from Datu Odinsinsuat, Maguindanao, which is my hometown. What makes this feat more emotional and fascinating is that the 4 top-notchers are girls. None of them is a boy. So that reinforces the wrong notion that the women belong to the weaker sex, especially in terms of intelligence. The Ministry of Basic, Higher and Technical Education's campaign that there shall be at least 1 professional in the family to help break the cycle of poverty in our region is not only exemplified by the 4 top-notchers, but also taken it to the next level by clinching the top 10. Their triumph opens the doors of endless possibilities to their fellow Bangsamoro that despite the challenges they face in their lives, they were able to achieve this marvelous feat. It is no doubt, Mr. Speaker, and esteemed colleagues, that this achievement also brings honor and glory to our newly established Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. Hence, this resolution is being passed to honor all those who are involved in this laudable achievement, because the triumph of the successful examinees is not only theirs, but of their parents, their teachers, and the communities that they belong, and ultimately ours as one people. With that, Mr. Speaker, I am inviting my esteemed colleagues for the adoption of this resolution for this government to formally recognize the achievements of these youngsters who shall play a very important role in the future of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. Maraming salamat, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I have an omnibus motion. For first, a motion to dispense with the period of interpellation and debate and period of amendment. And my second motion is for the approval of this proposed resolution. Mr. Speaker.
There is an omnibus motion to terminate the... Yes, MP Udja?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just would like to ask the proponent kung may cash ba na ibibigay sa mga top notchers natin. I think they deserve our good minister from MBHD or from any source. Pwede rin mag-volunteer ang mga MP. That's my query. Thank you.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, I would like to remind the MPs, I think there is a pending bill giving cash rewards to top notchers in the Bangsamoro. So doon na lang po yun matatakal, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, there is a standing motion for the approval of this.
There is an omnibus motion to terminate the period of interpellation and debate and amendment. Is there any second? There being no objection, the period of interpellation, debate, and amendment is now terminated. There is also a motion to approve and adopt proposed resolution number 630, subject to style.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any second? There being no objection, proposed resolution number 630 is approved and adopted by the BTA plenary.
Mr. Speaker, there being no other agenda or business.
We still have other matters. I think I will entertain MP Baintan.
MP Baintan, yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I have observed that we've been preparing the resolutions to the committees for the several days, past 3 days right now. And I think it's high time for the committees to really look at the referrals of the respective, especially the statutory committees and especially the Committee on Rules and the committees that haven't met yet since the beginning, Mr. Speaker. It's high time that we really need to work at the level of the committee so that we can produce more outputs, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Duly noted, Mr. Speaker.
Mr.
Duly
Speaker.
noted. Yes, MP Maysara?
Yes, in support of MP Baintan's call, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to report that today we are for the first time in the PTA Parliament committee level, 11 resolutions were omnibussly adopted. Some of them were omnibussly adopted in the committee of the Basic, Higher and Technical Education under Minister Iqbal. And also 2 bills were also adopted today for public consultation, Mr. Speaker. This only shows, Mr. Speaker, that if the committee is already functioning and working well, we will be very productive and hopefully finish all that is pending within our committee, Mr. Speaker.
Duly noted. Majority Floor.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, there being no other agenda or other business, I move to adjourn this session until next month, regular session, Mr. Speaker.
Session is adjourned until other matters. Can we just hear MP Susana Anayatin? I was not able to see her raising her hands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My concern is about the extension of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority. It is also imperative that we revisit the transition plan, which will end on June 30, 2022, following RA 111054. So my suggestion, Mr. Chair, is for us to revisit and update the transition plan from until 2025. Anong gagawin natin?
Yes.
Ma'am, can you just file a resolution on that
Mr.
matter?
Speaker, to inform the lady from Cotabato City, because I attended one of the cabinet meetings, Mr. Speaker, there is already ongoing enhancement or improvement of the transition plan by the BPDA. And hopefully this will be submitted to us in the Parliament for further approval, Mr. Speaker.
So, ganun po yung Mr. Speaker. Ongoing na po, maybe next month, may kita na po natin yung updated na transition plan, Mr. Speaker.
Ma'am,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
session is adjourned until February. What date?
February 15, Mr. Speaker.
February 15, 2022 at 1 o'clock p.m.
Alhamdulillah.